Now is Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois. And Senator, it is quite interesting that the right, you can name any senator, Mike Lee was out saying this, you've seen Mitch McConnell, et cetera. They want to just focus on the leak. But do you agree that the reason they're doing that is that they don't want us to pay attention to what they've done, the court they built that has stripped women of their rights?
You are absolutely right. That is exactly what they want us to do. They want to distract us to be focused on something other than the fact that they have successfully mounted this long-term war against the right of women to control their own bodies, and that they're on the verge of taking away a fundamental right that, by the way, 70% of Americans support. 70% of Americans have said that they do not support the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So they want us to focus on something else. And by the way, if you want to talk about insurrections, I'm sitting in a seat right now that is literally about a yard and a half away from where the insurrectionists broke through the window to try to climb into the United States Capitol. That was a real insurrection. This is about Republicans mounting a successful effort thus far that is about to result in taking away the fundamental rights of women to control their own bodies.
Yeah, it gets no more ridiculous than Josh Hawley, who tends to be ridiculous. This is a guy who voted to overturn the election, to overturn the will of 80 million voters. He wants to see an impeachment happen. Oh, suddenly now you're for impeachment as well. It's interesting to me that they're acting as if this has never happened before. The original Roe v. Wade case actually leaked. It leaked. It was leaked by a Supreme Court clerk to a Time magazine reporter in January of 1973. The issue of Time, with an article titled "The Sexes: Abortion on Demand," appeared on newsstands hours before the decision was announced by Justice Harry Blackmun. So that's happened before. I don't recall anybody going to jail over it. But let's talk about what is going to happen next. Is there an appetite, particularly among the women in the United States Senate, including some Republican women like Lisa Murkowski, to codify Roe into law?
Well, I would hope so. But right now, I think what we need to do is we need to keep putting the bill on the floor to codify Roe into law and keep putting the Republicans on record, either voting for or against it. They need to stand up and either vote for or against it. If they vote against it, then we just keep putting it on the floor for vote after vote after vote, to make it clear to the American people that what they need to do is vote this November and make sure that we have a majority in the United States Senate and in the House large enough that we can actually pass this legislation that would codify Roe into law.
Is it possible to make that case? Because, there is a lack of motivation that we've seen among Democratic voters, anger over inflation and over not getting some of the things that President Biden promised to do because, of course, he didn't have enough of a majority to do it. Do you sense among your constituents enough anger to say, yeah, Democrats may not be perfect, but the answer here is get us more Democrats?
Listen, I think so, especially as people find out what is at stake here. This isn't just about access to abortion. I mean, that in itself is more than enough to mount the campaign to codify Roe into law. But think about things that are dependent on Roe. I went through IVF. In vitro fertilization would be put in jeopardy. Some of the procedures that my doctor performed to implant a fertilized egg into me that resulted in the destruction of some of those fertilized eggs would be considered manslaughter. People who want to start families won't be able to start families. Wait till people find out that some of these enumerated rights that are not deeply embedded into the Constitution, like the right to contraception, the right to not send your kids to public schools, all of these rights could be taken away. If abortion rights does not get you angry, then I sure as heck believe that people are going to be angry when they realize how many things could be taken away. Interracial marriage, gay marriage. There's all sorts of rights that are not enshrined in the Constitution. Nowhere in the Constitution is the word privacy written about. And so, this decision is going to gut literally decades and 100 years of precedence when it comes to the legal system in this country. And we have to fight. And I will tell you that I've been hearing from people all over the country, not just from Illinois, who are ready to go. They're ready to take this to the polls in November, and we're going to win it.
And do you fear that Republicans will make good on the promises that some senators have already made, that if they take over the United States Senate, they will pass a national ban on abortion?
I do fear that, and because they have been as good as their word when it comes to the state legislatures. Think of all of the states that have those trigger laws that were just waiting for Roe to be overturned, and then they mounted a decades-long campaign to stack the Supreme Court. I mean, you've got everything from the denial of President Obama to seat a Supreme Court justice in his last year, all the way through to the rush seating of Amy Coney Barrett in the last months of a presidency during the final months of a presidential election campaign. They will do this because they have told us that that's what they're going to do. We better believe them. And by the way, I'm from Illinois. We have women who will drive 1,000 miles across hostile territory just to come to Illinois so that they can access reproductive rights. We cannot let this happen across the country.
And I think that, Alito claiming that in his ruling, the draft ruling, that this only applies to abortion, and don't worry, it doesn't apply to anything else. Yeah, that's what they said about Bush v. Gore. Then they've used it. That's what he said about Roe v. Wade being settled law. Should anyone believe anything that he or the other say? I mean, members of that party have gone out and said that women are overeducated. People who are against Roe being overturned are just overeducated and just need to find a man. I mean, that is what they think about women, right? That women are just beings who exist only to reproduce and for men's pleasure. I don't see any evidence to the contrary. Do you?
Well, and the thing is, the women who are most likely to be affected by this are women who are of the lower socioeconomic spectrum, who can't afford to take the days off from work to drive 1,000 miles to access productive choice. The women who are on, federally supported programs like Medicaid. The women who are struggling to make ends meet, to get by. The women who don't have a criminal justice system that truly represent them. And a healthcare system that truly listens to them. I mean, we're undergoing a huge maternal mortality crisis in this country right now, especially among, in particular, Black women and brown women as well. And they do this to women's health care.
Yeah. And they're coming for birth control pills next, guys. They're coming for that. Count on it. Yeah. Senator Tammy Duckworth, thank you very much.